Oi! Hello everyone, welcome back to the pit. It's a proper banging day today. We're having a butcher's at the newest army book for His Majesty's lot. Hello everyone. As you might just have gleaned from my awesome introduction, today is the day. What day? This day. Armies of Great Britain for 3rd edition bolt action. The book is here in all of its glory. It's 112 pages, and we're gonna read it together. I took a cursory look through it, I have to be honest, but right now we are giving a thorough look. Now, before we begin, it will not be a purely game analysis. We will touch on that, of course, but it's not a review about what's good and what's not, mainly, most of the time. At least this is the idea. Also, today, for the first time in Talk Action, I have a co-host, and no other than Staff Sergeant Hartman from the Royal Engineer Corps. He will assist me throughout the video, giving and providing thoughtful analysis and objections and observations and everything. So, Sergeant, hello and welcome back to the pit. Yeah. It's, of course, it's an awesome book. It's about the armies of Great Britain, so it cannot but be awesome. But again, let's begin with the review. So, as per usual, in the Armies of series for 3rd edition, well, the cost, it's 30 euros, just like all others. We have the initial section, which all of you are probably going to skip, where, now, truth be told, for a change, it's not about World War II, but more about how the different branches of the armies work, namely Commandos, Airborne, Chindits, etc., etc. Then finally, we get to the army list proper, namely on page 22. And we begin with the Army Special Rules. We knew about these already, of course, because Warlord Games already released leaks about this, but here they are. We have fixed bayonets. The British had very much kept alive the tradition of closing in with the enemy. For every 3 models, irrespective of what armament they carry in your unit involved in close quarters, you may add an additional die when rolling to damage. These attacks are assumed to come from any of the models in the unit. For example, 4 models would add 1 additional model. Now, okay, we thought about this, we discussed about it. I already tried some games with this. I think it's a solid rule. I'm gonna eventually making a tier list, but I think it's pretty solid. It can be used offensively, and it's very interesting defensively. Now, of course, in 3rd edition, there's much less hand-to-hand combat, but having possibly extra dice is such a huge deterrent from any would-be attackers. Then we have artillery support. British forces were supported by well-coordinated gun batteries and were able to call down fire to support an attack or discourage the enemy's advance. When rolling on the artillery barrage table or the smoke barrage table, which I'm curious to know if any of you ever used a smoke barrage. Roll 2 dice and pick the highest result. This, in my opinion, is less powerful than what it was in the big rulebook, because it was 2 barrages, but that was definitely way over the top. So this is much better balance-wise. Still means you are very unlikely to mishap your artillery strikes, because that only happens on a double one. It's less situational than, for example, the Italian rules, at least the temporary Italian rules. They can choose to re-roll. For example, if you are an Italian and you roll a 2, what do? Do you re-roll and risk a 1 on the re-roll, or you accept the delay? Again, in this case, you just roll 2 dice and pick the highest. Then we have one of the most controversial rules. Come on, lads! With great professionalism and unflappable, stiff upper lip, British officers led from the front, often putting themselves in positions of extreme danger. British officers' morale bonus is increased by 1, but any cover save they might receive is reduced by 1. Now, this is an incredibly powerful rule given how things work in 3rd edition. So your run-out-of-the-mill platoon commanders sport a massive +3 morale bonus. You can circumvent their penalties by hiding behind the terrain if available, and I think it's really strong, but more on that later. And finally we have for now, I assume in lieu of FAQs, that the cover save penalty applies to the officer's unit. Now, this is not specified, but I want to hope that this is on a per unit basis, not on a per model basis. Otherwise, we would have a unit with 2 different cover saves, and I don't think it's just possible, or I don't think it would make any sense. Then we have, for King and Country, we were saying, certain infantry and artillery units in the book have additional options to represent the different distinct forces of the Guards, Commandos, Airborne, and Chindits. Basically, now again, I don't want to bore you to death reading through all the descriptions. Basically, this is the same. It works the same way it worked for the Germans with the SS, the Airborne, and the Gebirgsjäger, and the US with Marines, Airborne, and the third one. Same reasoning. Now, the British have 4 rules. Now, Airborne, they look the same. They must be taken as veteran. They must be upgraded to stubborn for +1 point per model, which is, by the way, stubborn is a very strong rule. And any infantry unit other than medium machine guns, medium mortars, or heavy mortar teams may be upgraded with wild bikes for +1 point per model. Now, still have to see wild bike models on my tables, but that might just be me. Anyway, the option is there. Then we have the Guards. This rule, this is, again, I think it's kind of controversial. This rule represents the renowned Guards regiments, but can also be used for other storied regiments with a strong series of regimental tradition dating back hundreds of years. The units must be taken as regulars or veterans. Regulars also, very important. Units must be given the following rule for +1 point per model. Iron discipline. Any regular or veteran unit may remove 2 pin markers rather than the usual one if an auto test is passed. Now, I'll be honest, I still haven't tested it on the actual battlefield, but it sounds pretty insane. It's like it's sort of a... Now, this is a heritage from the old Vengeance rule, which was one of the optional rules you could take for the British in 2nd edition. How did Vengeance work? Basically, if you started your activation within 12 inches of an enemy models, you rolled the dice. If you scored a 4+, you removed one pin marker for free. So it was more situational, i.e. you had to have enemies within 12, and it just worked on a 4+. Now, I do think... Now, it was for free, it has to be said. Now, on paper, removing 2 pin markers per auto test sounds insane. I mean, the Brits are already harder to pin than other armies because of their officers being so awesome, and if you start removing 2 pins at a time, it can quickly add up. Plus the fact that you can put it on regular troops makes it even better, in my opinion, because now you have your twicely pinned regulars that can remove 2 pins in a row. Again, I haven't field tested it, but on paper it sounds wow. Then we have the Commandos. Now again, war games seem to have a big boner for Commandos. Units must be taken as veteran. Units must be given the following rules for +3 points per model. Note that SMGs cost only 3 points if given to Commandos. Now again, this is a rule that doesn't make sense to me game-wise. Now, true stands were easy to mass produce, but I don't think you should take that into account when balancing the game. Now, SMGs are already, in my opinion, some of the, if not the best weapons for infantry, and why do Commandos have a discount that goes beyond me? And especially in Commandos, because you actively want to give them SMGs, so it's like they have a discount of 1 point. So again, that baffles me. Then again, Commandos, we were saying, they are tough fighters. They have behind enemy lines, so they don't suffer from the -1 penalty when coming in from reserve, and that makes sense. Then we have independent. If a Commando subsection loses its NCO, roll a die. On a roll of 3 or more, another model within the unit is immediately selected to act as the unit's NCO. On the roll of 1 and 2, treat the subsection as having lost its NCO as normal. So it's a sort of a mix between the 2nd edition German rule. It's basically an evolution of that rule. In the second edition, German troops could ignore the loss of the NCO on a roll of a 2+. Now, Germans automatically ignore, if they are regular or veteran, they automatically ignore the loss of the NCO. Commandos get to roll a dice. If they roll a 3+, they're fine, otherwise they get the -1 permanent morale penalty. But that might not be a factor. Spoiler alert. Commando machine gun teams, mortar teams, anti-tank teams, and flamethrower teams can fire any small arms they carry if the team is not firing the main weapon. More on that later. Then finally, so a whole bunch of special rules for Commandos. Then we have Chindits. Units must be taken as veteran. Units must be given the following rules for plus 3 points per man. Behind enemy lines, just like Commandos, they don't suffer the -1 penalty for getting on the board from reserves or outflanking. Then they have ambush tactics. When deployed on the table, these units may start the game in ambush. And they have fieldcraft. These applies to light howitzers and light anti-tank guns too, but not to other artillery units. Now, let me check in real time. I didn't get to I meant to check it before recording, but for the sake of authenticity, I'm going to do this live. This is Armies of Germany. So I want to take a look at the Gebirgsjäger. Okay, now for comparison, because what's fair is fair, Gebirgsjäger just get the fieldcraft rule, but they only pay +1 point per model, while the Chindits actually pay 3, but they have 3 special rules actually. Behind enemy lines, ambush tactics, basically these cancel each other because you are either on the table, so you can be on ambush, or you are behind enemy lines, you can't get both. And the fieldcraft, which is always awesome. Then we have the usual page for the quartermaster stores, where there are some particular equipments. We have the little drone adapters. These were extensions screwed on the front of a quick-firing 2-pounder anti-tank gun. Basically, this increases the... I'm skipping the less rules-intensive parts. This increases the penetration of the quick-firing 2-pounder light anti-tank gun, giving it a pen value of +3. However, the gun cannot fire HE. In addition, if you roll a 1 before modifiers, when you're rolling to hit, basically the gun breaks and cannot be used for the rest of the game. Now, I think this is the first instance, at least the first one and only that comes to mind, where you can actually blow up your own gun. So I think I would never ever use a weapon that can basically destroy itself. Then we have the well bikes, which is again an option for any airborne unit. Basically, they count as bicycles. Then we have the Vickers K-guns, which it's basically Hitler's buzzsaw. So for +5 points, which is usually the cost of the upgrade, you basically get an extra shot. So they shoot like MG42. And as I said in other videos, I think MG42s should get at least one additional shot when fired from medium machine gun teams, but that's beyond the scope of this video. So you can have basically Hitler's buzzsaw for +5 points for an extra shot. And demolition charges, which is the same as it was for any other army. So you have basically a big HE3 one-shot weapon. So Sarge, these are basically the special rules. What do we think of those? Yeah, I agree. They are pretty good. Okay, they are pretty good in my opinion. Some more than others, but on overall they are pretty good. Then we finally move on to the troops themselves. We have the headquarter units, begin with the officers. Officers, both platoon and company commanders. They can be inexperienced, regular, or veterans. The officer may be accompanied by up to 5 men with rifles. Any model can substitute the rifle for a submachine gun. Now, it's interesting that, well, let me finish. One officer may have the intelligence special rule, which is the ability to possibly choose the first order dice in a turn. Again, this is the exact same rule that we had for the US and the Germans, and will easily be the same for all other future releases as well. They can have they have the for king and country rules, so they can be guards, commandos, airborne, and chindits. If taken as commandos, and only commandos, they can have an extended retinue. They may be accompanied by 2 additional men. So basically, you can have an 8-man commando squad. Interestingly enough, usually in other books, you could get more guys if you took paratroopers, but again, as we are going to see, the British love their commandos. Now, it's unclear if the point post reduction for submachine gun applies if you make the section commandos. I don't think so, since it's clearly stated that they cost 4 points, but there might be an FAQ, I don't know. Plus, finally, if taken as commandos or airborne, the section may have anti-tank grenades for plus 2 points per model. Again, your basic officer team, nothing particularly new here. Then we have the medic, which is the same guy, regular or veteran. One guy can be up to 2 attendants. They can be for king and country. If taken as commandos, may be accompanied by up to 3 additional men. Again, on top of the additional men already taken, so you could have a medic with 5 more guys who can fight in close combat only if attacked, and they do not count for victory purposes, so they cannot capture objectives, they don't give points if they get killed. It's just funny how you could have basically a field hospital running around your table, and they have to be veteran too. So again, pretty funny. Then we have the chaplain. Again, this is a new unit that is popping up in every book. Inexperienced, regular, and veteran. Can be for king and country, and they fight in close combat only to defend themselves, like medics. And they have the inspiring presence special rule, which means that you can roll to basically remove 1 extra pin from a nearby unit. Then we have the forward observers, as usual, regular or veteran. They can be artillery or air force observers. Again, they can have a retinue of 2 men. They can have submachine gun or pistols, which is, I guess, well, not necessarily. You can give them pistols for a discount if you want. As usual, if you take those as commandos, they may be accompanied by up to 5 additional men on top of the additional already listed. So once again, you can have an 8-man 4 observer team. Now, we are starting to see a trend here. So you can have a huge command squad. You can have, if you want, a huge medic squad. You can have a huge 4 observer team squad. So it's almost as if you can take way less troops or more, depending on what's your stick, because you can really have a buttload of commandos. Then we move to the infantry squads themselves, and again there are going to be some nice surprises. We have the poor rifle sections. Again, in 2nd edition you had the You could differentiate between early and late war, where they could get more war gear. Now they are just your out-of-the-mill troops. They can be inexperienced, regular, veteran, and they can have one single SMG and one single light machine guns. But they can have for king and country, which means that if you take them at regular or better, they can be still hold their own, at least morale-wise. Now, a little bit sad that the rifle section is just left there. It almost sounds like as if the British didn't field rifle section, so that they sucked. Then we have the Home Guard section. This is one of the the what if troops, because they were I'm improperly going to call them a militia. These were the troops that were supposed to fight to defend the realm if the Germans managed to succeed in the Sea Lion operation. So if they could land actually on in Britain, they have to be inexperienced, 5 men up to 5 unarmed, that can be given rifles, shotguns, or pistols. And it's just a pretty just a thematic unit. If you want to run a what if scenario, they will be used, but in actual gameplay, I don't think so. They are not even shirkers or anything, so they are reliable, inexperienced troops that you will probably never field. Then we have the airborne section, the paratroopers. They have 1+4. They can add up to 5 for a maximum unit size of 10 men, up to 4 submachine guns, up to 1 light machine gun, and up to 1 light mortar. So you could technically get both. You can have a light machine gun and a light mortar. 1 section of paratroopers per platoon may be upgraded to Pathfinders for +1 point per model. What is Pathfinders? You're gonna see in a moment. The usual options for grenades, and they can have bikes for +1 points. They are stubborn, they are tank hunters. Paratroopers, if you Pathfinders, if you take these as Pathfinders, you get the LZ signals special rule. What does it entail? Pathfinders may always start on the table within the owning player's deployment zone. If you deploy at least 1 unit of Pathfinders on the table before the first turn starts, i.e. the Pathfinders are not in the first wave or in reserve, then any friendly paratroopers and glider units in reserve may re-roll failed order tests to come on the table. Now, I'm going to do another check. Again, Armies of Germany, Fallschirmjägers, I'm pretty sure they have nothing like this. They don't have this in early war. They don't have this in late war. Then we have Armies of the United States. Now these guys get 2 different entries to do the same thing. They have the US Paratrooper Squad that is just less machine guns, basically no mortars, of course. And then you have the Pathfinders, which you can get more of actually, because British paratroopers are limited to 1 per platoon, and Pathfinders, US Pathfinder Squad actually get to be up to 12 men, but they have less weapon options. So basically the Brits are a mix of US paratroopers and Pathfinders, with better weapon options, in my opinion, because it's some machine guns. It's always some machine guns. The LZ signals, I don't think they make so much of a difference, but the ability to always start on the table, that can be really, really huge. Then we have the air landing rifle section. What do these guys do? They can be regular or veterans. They begin at 4 and can be up to 8 in total. So they are basically, they are gliders. They are glider units, and they are stubborn. They can be stubborn, and they just are poor man's airborne section. They have less options, less men, and I don't know why you would take them, but they're there. Then we have the Chindit. The Chindits must be veteran. They start with 5 men and can grow up to 10 men. They can have up to 2 SMGs and 1 MMG, and they have the 3 special rules that we discussed: behind enemy lines, ambush tactics, and fieldcraft. They are pretty pricey. Now, technically, they basically just fought in the Eastern campaign, so I don't know. Again, being honest, I never field tested a fieldcraft unit. I still think the rule does not make sense, but you have the Chindits. Then then we have the Commando subsection. Now there's a whole bunch of flavor text about how they came to existence, etc., etc. Commandos must be taken as veterans, of course. They begin with 4 men, and they can grow up to 10. But there's more. They can add a Commando second lieutenant for plus 30 points. Note that this adds only a single officer model, not an entire Commando officer HQ with options for the models, and does not fulfill the requirements for a platoon commander to lead the platoon. So we have a mini officer. Now, rules are written technically, but let me finish reading the entry, then we will discuss. So you can have this mini officer. Any man can have the SMGs for plus 3 points. Up to 2 men can have light machine guns. I don't think you would ever want to take the LMG in place of more cheap SMGs. They can have Vickers machine guns if you want, 5 points. They can have anti-tank grenades, and they can have bicycles as well. So, what about their special rules? So, the Commando second lieutenant. It reads like this: representing a first or second lieutenant who leads his men directly. This is an officer model that follows the rules of a platoon commander, except that his morale bonus is just +1, and his U-Men snap to action only affects 1 other unit instead of 2. The unit does not suffer from the effects of losing its NCO if the officer is still alive. Now, again, rules are written, we were saying, by the command lads rule. This guy who was supposed to give just a +1 to morale actually gives a +2 because he is a British officer, which is, again, on veterans is pretty insane, because if you run 2 units of Commandos, he can just lead both. Now there is, admittedly, if this is true, if the small lieutenant actually gives a +2, it means the unit with the mini officer actually gets a worse cover save, which in a unit might matter more than you would think on an actually infantry unit. It might matter on a command squad, especially if you take a huge command squad. And actually, this is, of course, this is the balancing factor for the +1, which I still think is awesome. But again, if the whole team gets the -1, can be penalizing. But I mean, having a free extra officer model is still awesome. They are tough fighters and they have behind enemy lines. This is the Commando subsection. But wait. You turn the page and then you find the Royal Navy Commando subsection. Another Commando subsection. Who can be only veterans, of course. They begin with 5 men. Now, the regular Commandos began with 1 NCO and 3 men, then up to 6 to 10. The Royal Navy Commandos begin with 5, 1 NCO, senior rating, and 4 men, junior ratings. They have pistols and rifles. Now, I don't know why they would give them pistols, honestly, because they are not assault weapons anymore, so they don't give you tough fighters, which these guys are in any case. And so honestly, I have no idea why they are specified being armed with pistols as well. So we were saying 1 + 4, NCO + 4, then you can add up to 9 junior ratings. So you can have a 9 + 5, a 14-man Royal Navy Commando subsection. Then you can have the extra Commando second lieutenant for +30 point, which works the same as it worked for the regular poor man's Commandos. One junior rating can have a light machine gun, and the entire subsection may have anti-tank grenade for the usual +2. Rules: they have the Commando second lieutenant, again, which is the same rule as it worked before. They are tank hunters if they take anti-tank grenades. They are tough fighters. They have behind enemy lines, and on top they get securing the beaches. Royal Navy Commando subsections count as engineers when attempting to clear underwater mines. If a Royal Navy Commando subsection is on the table with a rally order, any attempt to bring on reserves via boat, landing craft, or amphibious vehicle ignores the normal -1 modifier. Now, so you can have a whole bunch of these guys, but they don't get to have the cheap SMGs. So this is what differentiates these guys from the others. You can have more, they still are tough fighters, so with the extra attacks, these guys can have like 20, 15, yeah, they can have possibly up to 20 hits in close combat. Then we have Commandos. We have Commando Motorcycle Detachment. They start with 1 + 2 guys, always veteran. They can have up to 6 extra men with rifles. They are armed with rifles, and can have motorcycles plus 21 points per model. And they, of course, they can get cheap SMGs. They have motorbike special rules. They are tough fighters, and they have the behind enemy lines. The behind enemy lines special rule. Plus, they are independent, which means that if they lose the NCO, the new guy steps up on a 2+ rather than a 3+. No, never mind. It's just a 3+, also for them. Never mind. Okay, so you have motorcycle commandos as well. In the early war. Now, all other commandos... No, you can have commandos in early war as well. Never mind. So you can have motorcycle guys. You can have the Hells Angels. Then we have the SAS, Infantry Section, Special Air Service. These guys, of course, are veterans. They begin at 1 NCO and 3 men, pistols and rifles, just like the Royal Navy Commandos. They can add up to just 4 men. So the poor SAS just get to be 8 men maximum. Of course, they can all have cheap machine guns at plus 3 points. You can have up to 2 LMGs, upgradable, anti-tank grenades, and 1 demolition charge. Now, the SAS have the special rule who dares wins, which basically means they count as fanatics all the time. Now, regular fanatics are no longer fanatics if they are reduced to just 1 model. The SAS are, even if there's just 1 last man standing, is still fanatic. Ah! Cool, huh? What else? They are tough fighters, of course, behind enemy lines, and tank hunters. So, basically, their gist is that they are fanatic. So they are... Now, fanatic is like a small upgrade from stubborn, but you're limited in their numbers. So probably commandos. I don't know. Fanatics is good. Don't get me wrong, but maybe commandos are still better. Yeah, you have SAS. Then we have the Corps of Military Police Section. Again, this is a type of unit that we've seen in all other books as well. They are just inexperienced. They do not know what to do with their rifles. They just give traffic direction. If they are on reserve, they basically make other vehicles ignore the -1 penalty from getting from reserve, and they get back in the fight. If any unit fails an attempt to rally, if they are within 6 of these guys, they can re-roll, which I don't think will basically ever come into play, because in order to use the traffic direction unit, they have to be in reserve themselves. Now, being inexperienced, they will possibly have difficulties entering the battlefield themselves once the vehicles are in, because you're all on just a 7, but it is what it is. Then we have the engineers section. They can be inexperienced, regular, or veteran. Now, it's weird that some armies get to have inexperienced engineers and others don't. Well, the Brits can have incompetent engineers. They begin at 1+4 men with rifles, up to 5 men. You can have 1 SMG, 1 light machine gun, 1 flamethrower, They can have anti-tank grenades, the usual demolition charge, but of course they have the King and Country special rules. If they are taken as commando, they can all be given SMGs with a discount. If they are taken as airborne, they may be given submachine guns, again all of them, but for the full cost of plus 4 points. Then you have to stack on top the fact that they have to be veterans. If they are airborne, you must give them, you have to give them stubborn for +1, must be. So you have to give them stubborn for +1 points. If they are commandos, you have to pay them even more. And their special rules is engineer, so that's what you need to take if you want an engineering platoon. Then we have a medium machine gun team, usual stuff, usual cost, 3 men, 50 points regular. You can upgrade them for King and Country. If taken as commandos, any man can even be given a submachine gun for +5 points each. This is where things start to become more interesting. Now, usually weapon teams don't get their own weapons. They either shoot their main weapon or they do nothing. These guys, admittedly, for a hefty price cost increase, because you do have to take the MMG as veteran, 65 points. Then commandos, other 3 points, so other 9 points. Then more submachine guns, so 15 more points. You spend a lot of points, but you technically have a unit that can either shoot the MMG or 3 SMGs, if at full strength. So at that point, probably you just take more commandos, but you have the option. Then we have the boys anti-tank rifle team, the usual crap anti-tank gun of early and mid-war. 2 men, anti-tank rifle. They can have King and Country. You can take these as commandos, of course, in which case they can have submachine guns. The reasoning remains the same, but you can have everybody, all commandos with machine guns everywhere, submachine guns everywhere. Then we have the Blacker Bombard anti-tank team. Again, this was spoiled by warlords in their intelligence report. The Blacker Bombard, you can have these in experience, regular or veteran, 26, 40, 52 points. Basically, it's a 24-inch range, one-shot HE2. So, a pretty useless option. I think I would take a mortar any time of the day. Then we have the Piat anti-tank team. Usual stuff, all 3 kind of experience. If you take these as commandos, they can all have SMGs. Again, SMG galore. Usual rules, shoot charge, team weapon, etc. You know this. Then we have the sniper team. They can be regular or veteran. 2 men, rifles and pistols. If you take them as a commandos, of course, SMGs for those as well. Now, and I think this is a mistake. Funnily enough, the sniper team does have the team weapon, special rule, the sniper, special rule, for King and Country, special rule. Do you see where we were going? Sarge, where are we going? Yeah, exactly. They are not infiltrators. Now, I think it will be FAQ'd almost for sure, but if you go by the rules as they are written, I don't know on the official app if it's any different, but in the book, these guys are unable to infiltrate. Then we have the flamethrower team. a regular veteran, two dudes with an infantry flamethrower, usual, king and country, commandos, submachine gun galore, which is weird in a weapon that can possibly blow up again if it just depletes its fuel sources. But you have that. Nothing new. We have the light mortars. Again, all the usual light mortar stuff. The only difference is that you can freely choose to add a third guy in all kind of configurations with king and country. Except if you take these as commandos, they can all have submachine guns. Then we have the medium mortar, usual medium mortar. They can have a spotter, etc. King and country. If you take them as commandos, yeah, yeah, they can have submachine guns. At least not for just 3 points. But again, I don't think we will see many of these, but you have those. We have a heavy mortar team, usual stuff. Now, funnily enough, the heavy mortar team can only be guards or chindits, not airborne or commandos there, as it's too heavy. Yeah, the heavy mortar is too heavy, and we don't want too many commandos. Then we move to the artillery section, finally, after all these commandos, some guns. Light artillery, usual stuff, Inex, regular veteran, light howitzer, 3 men, can have a spotter, does have an inbuilt gun shield. If you take these king and country, but only guards, airborne, and chindits, so no commandos with light artillery, they do have the 20-pounder 80 shell spatial rule. In the Western Desert, the 25-pounder often found itself pitched against enemy tanks. It was provided with an 80 shell, which was fired with the maximum charge over a flat trajectory to achieve the highest velocity. The 20-pounder can shoot either as a light howitzer or as a light anti-tank gun. Declare what shell is loaded if setting an ambush, which can be fine especially in an early game scenario where a light anti-tank gun can basically blow up every vehicle on the board. Especially if you do have the heavy guns, your friends, the French. Then we have the medium artillery. For medium artillery, literally have no special rules. They don't have king and country. They just have their medium howitzer with the spotter. Full stop. The heavy artillery, same as before. You can just give them a spotter. They have a gun shield. All 3 experience levels. And then, just because, it would be sad if every army was different, you can have the land mattress. Now, honestly, but this might just be ignorance on my part, I never heard of the land mattress. What's the land mattress? A multiple rocket launcher. Can be only used in late war, can be Inex, regular, or veteran, 3 men, just 1 multi-launcher, just to have fun and engage in some interactive gameplay with your opponent as you try to roll 6s and decimate your opponent's army. Then we have the anti-tank guns. The quick-firing 2-pounder is your basic light anti-tank gun. It comes on a rotating platform. It can be all 3 levels of experience. You can use it throughout the war. It just has a gun shield. For King and Country, for guards and chindits, so again, no airborne or commando guns, just a light anti-tank gun. Then we have the quick-firing 6-pounder, which is basically the same. It's a medium anti-tank gun, 3 men, all 3 levels of experience, mid-late war. The difference is that unlike the quick-firing 2-pounder, the 6-pounder can be given to the airborne troops as well. If you take them as airborne, you can basically be they can be towed as if they were light anti-tank guns. Again, those most of the time are not an integral part of bolt action. You just don't use them unless you want them to have a cheap or the dice, that is. Then we have the quick-firing 17-pounder. Now, this is where another unwritten special rule comes into play. Once again, this was spoiled by warlords. That's your super heavy anti-tank gun with 5-man crew, mid-late war, inexperienced, regular, veteran. Now, inexperienced, you pay this baby 70 points, and I don't think you want to bring an inexperienced gun, which has just 1 shot. You want to make the shot count, so you take, for example, regular 100 points, or veteran 130 points. Special rules, guards or airborne, interestingly. And it has the light HE special rules, like all British super heavy guns have. What does the light HE special rule entail? Instead of the HE3 template, the super heavy anti-tank gun has HE1. Now, again, this is controversial. Would you rather have a cheap super heavy gun, but that's crap HE, or a true double mode gun? Personally, I think most of the time I'd rather have both. So if, for example, if my opponent doesn't bring vehicles, which is possible, the HE3 messes up real bad infantry. It still can destroy light vehicles, and it can level up buildings. So I think the loss of the HE3 in overall is a penalty, is a setback. It is rather cheap, because 100 points for regular, it's dirt cheap for a super heavy that can blow up any opposing tanks. So maybe this just depends a lot on your meta. Again, this might be different for turners. I'm not discussing turners. I don't go to turners. I'm not interested in competitive bolt action. So I might be wrong from a strictly competitive perspective. But in my games, I'd rather have an HE3 if I wanted a big gun like this. Sarge? Well, the Sarge says that, as you hear, that the big gun is a big gun, but you do what you will. If you like them, that's great. And again, in a vehicle-heavy meta, I see a point, or more precisely, I see why this might be actually intriguing, because really a super heavy blows up light tanks super easy, and it can be useful again in a vehicle meta. Then we move to anti-aircraft guns. We have the 20mm Oerlikon Poston cannon, light autocannon on a rotating platform. 3 dudes, all 3 levels of experience throughout the war, can be guards, airborne, or chinded. It's flak, of course. 40mm Bofors gun, heavy autocannon on a rotating platform, 4 men. Again, pretty cheap. All these options are, these 2 weapons are cheap. For example, the 20mm, just 46 points for regular. The heavy autocannon is 65 points per a veteran, for veterans. They can be guards, airborne, and chindits, flak, early, mid, late, your out-of-the-mill anti-aircraft units. Can be decent. Then we have the 3.7-inch quick-firing dual-purpose AA-80 gun. This is your poor man's 88, German 88. It's just a heavy gun on a rotating platform. You get 6 men. For, again, you can use this throughout the war, while the quick-firing 17-pounder just mid-late. 6 men, 100 points regular, so just like the 17-pounder. The problem is that this dual purpose actually gets to suck a little bit if you use that as an anti-tank gun, because it has the improvised roll rule. The 3.7-inch gun is not really designed to engage ground targets. Each time it shoots against a ground target, it receives 1 pin marker to represent both the mechanical strain on the gun and its crew. So, again, I don't see how many aircrafts you see in your games. I don't think this gun has much of a purpose, but it is what it is. Then move to vehicles. This is gonna be long, so I'll have to cut some corners, otherwise this video will last a lifetime. As usual, you have pages and pages of tanks. You go from page 52 to page 72 just with tanks, so excluding tank destroyers, so I'll be rather quick. We have a light tank, Mark II to 6B, which is just, again, funnily enough, it's an armored car with a turret-mounted HMG and a coaxial MMG. I wonder, what am I gonna shoot? My 3-shot HMG or my 3-shot MMG? I wonder. Armor car, Mark 6C, light autocannon with coaxial LMG, armor car, Vickers 6-ton light tank. These are basically all early, maybe mid-late vehicles. The 6-ton light tank has an MMG turret and another, kind of basically 2 turrets with MMGs, or you can swap those for a light anti-tank gun with coaxial MMG. Again, so far none of these vehicles can be veteran. Then we have the Tetrarch, which was the airdroppable light tank, mid-late war, only regular. We have no other options. It comes with a light anti-tank and a coaxial machine gun. It's just an armor car though, so armor value 7. You can give it a light howitzer, and if you want, if you don't take the light howitzer, you can have the famous Little John adapter, which is the one that blows your own gun up. Then we have the slew of cruiser tanks, beginning with the Mark I and 1 close support, light anti-tank with coaxial, one again of double, some turrets, some machine guns, and basically most of these options can also have, in place of the light 80 gun, a light howitzer. A-10 cruiser, again early war. This is a light tank with light anti-tank gun and MMG. Can have another MMG, can have a light howitzer. A-13 cruiser Mark III, just downgraded to an armored car. This just is pretty useless. A-13 Mark II, cruiser tank Mark IV and 4A. Again, I'm skimming because otherwise we will be here all day. And again, let me just state this, hopefully for the last time. These, okay, it's historically accurate that there were all these variants, but in game you're never going to see most of these. So it's just, they are just here, but many of those are literally stat-wise the same model. Okay, only the model changes, the rules are the same. We are A-13 cruiser tank Mark V Covenanter, which admittedly, and it's written here, was considered so bad that even during a time where Britain was desperate for tanks, it never went into combat. And I can see why. It's a light tank with the usual light anti-tank gun with coaxial, but you can only get this at inexperience for 100 points. So again, it existed, you made the rules, but I don't think there's ever going to be a model for the Covenanter. And even if there was a model, I mean, only hardcore completionists would ever think of buying or build one, my humble opinion. Then we have we move on to the Crusader with its very instantly recognizable turret, the cruiser tank Mark VI Crusader 1 and 1 close support. It's the usual light tank, light anti-tank gun, coaxial machine gun. This one gets a forward-facing machine gun on the hull, I guess, which most of these other early cruiser tanks didn't get. Then we move to the slew of variation of the Crusaders. We have another Crusader with, again, which is basically the same. Yeah, for example, the Crusader 2 is exactly the same, only without one LMG. So you just like your tanks to be one shot. Only this is the tanks for you. Then we have the Crusader 3, that again is basically the same, only you don't get... No, this is a medium, sorry, apologies. This is a medium anti-tank gun with coaxial, just one weapon. Only light tank. Then we have the Cromwell. We are stepping up our game here with the Cromwell, but it's only late war. It's a medium tank, armor 9, 75 millimeters medium anti-tank gun with coaxial and one hull mounted MMG. You can swap it for a medium howitzer. This is the improved HE if you leave just the basic 25 millimeters, and it is fast though. The Cromwell is fast vehicle. Then you have the cruiser tank Mark 8 center close support, again a medium howitzer, basically an MMG, late war medium tank, all 3 levels of experience. We have the Challenger. Now again we are into late war. This is again a tank with a big gun. You have a super heavy, no hull machine guns. And again, let's just discuss this because it might be more interesting. So for 215 point, no, actually, let's move to the next one. So we basically have 200 points and change for one super heavy anti-tank gun with medium tank chassis, so damage value 9, light HE, so no HE3, just HE1. Then we have the Comet, which was the end game British tank. It clocks at 258 points at regular and 310 as veteran. Again, only late war, and you get a turret-mounted super heavy with coaxial and one forward MMG, medium tank with reinforced front armor and light HE. Now let's compare it with the Panther. Let me grab the book. Panther. Now, this is 258 points regular. The Panther clocks at 298 points. For basically the same stats, the Panther can have one additional pintle-mounted MMG, which we can ignore, and the Panther can have the Panzer Ace special rule. Now, the difference is, and veteran, the Comet is 310 points versus 358 points. So it's like 50 points per veteran, and let's say 40 for regular. Now, are those 40 to 60 point worth losing the HE3? I do not think so. Maybe, as we saw before, I might want to get a 17-pounder, just anti-tank gun. I don't know if on my tanks I want to lose the HE. Again, if your local meta or if the tournament meta is just vehicles, and again I think it's mostly lighter vehicles, I still don't particularly like the light HE rule. But this is what you get as the British. Then we have the Matilda line of tanks. They begin with the Matilda 1, which is a slow medium tank with just one HMG, inexperienced or regular. And when we move up the various iterations of the Matilda, the Mark II and 2C light anti-tank with coaxial can be fitted with a light howitzer. Then we have all the various Valentines, which again are sort of a step back because they are slow, they are more durable with 9 damage value, but they sport just a light anti-tank and with coaxial, so it won't get you too far. Then we have other versions of Valentine, 8 through 10, still a medium tank with just, for example, these are just a medium anti-tank, no, not even a coaxial. But they can be, all Matildas can be veterans. You can add one coaxial though, if you want, but you have to spend more. They are still slow. Then we finally have the Valentine 11, 75mm with improved HE, basically, and not much else. Then we move on to the Churchills. Now the Churchills start having really a lot of options. I don't think I'm going to read through all of these. Again, notable, the Churchills can be, are listed as early, mid, late. They can go from inexperienced to veteran, and they begin being heavy tanks. So armor value 10. You have to spend at least 200 points. Again, I don't think you'd want an inexperienced. You can start having your options. It begins with just a medium anti-tank gun. It can be downgraded for a light one. You can howitzers, 70mm with improved HE, etc., etc. Then we have the Churchill 728, again with a 75mm, but this monster is a super heavy tank, still slow. You can just easily get this at veteran for 450 points for a medium anti-tank gun. I say keep your Churchill. Then we have the best model ever, right, Sarge? And of course, it's him. It's the Churchill Avu RE. This is just, I mean, I have personal reasons to love this tank. It's also super effective in game, which ironically kind of saddens me because it makes me want not to use that as much as I would want. Is still pretty pricey. You have to spend 310 points regular, 372 veteran, but you get the turn-mounted heavy howitzer that just blows everything up. It just have half range, but as a heavy howitzer, range isn't usually your concern, and it just pops infantry and buildings, especially buildings, dead. Love it. Love you, Serge. And then we have the Churchill Crocodile as a super heavy with a flamethrower. Again, pretty pricey. Slow. You have to spend at least 425 points for the Crocodile, which is probably not worth it. But again, the model is fun with its own cute little trailer with the fuel. Then we start having all the US tanks in British service with the Land-Lease, etc. Again, let's be rather quick. M3, Stuart 1 and Stuart 2, Stuart 3, Stuart 4, Stuart 5, Stuart 6. Again, I'm not going to read through all of these. The only thing of note is that you can make all of the Stuarts a Stuart Recce. This entails basically losing your turret and getting a pintle-mounted HMG with 360 degrees arc, but you become open-topped and you have Recce. So they are pretty cheap. They become just scouts, very light scouts. They're all light tanks, except for the Stuart 6, which is basically the M5 that get the reinforced armor. Then we have the M3 Lee/Grant, depending on your preferred definition. Again, the Lee usually are loved because they are multi-weapon platforms. For example, the Grant/Lee 1, you have a 75mm medium anti-tank gun and another turret-mounted light anti-tank gun, and you can have an additional MMG. It has improved HE, is though vulnerable and easily catches fire. Or you can get the Lee number 2. Again, you keep the double guns. It's a medium tank. It still catches fire and it has improved HE. Then you have the Lee 4, if you want, still medium, still more or less the same. None of these can be veteran. If you want a veteran tank, you can get the Grant number 2, for example. That still had the Lee turret, by the way. And it's always the same stuff. More of the same. Then we have all the variations of the M4 Sherman, starting with the Sherman 1, 75mm, Sherman 2, 3, and 4, 2, 3, and 5. Then we have 2A and 3.8. Then we have the 1B. Again, what changes is basically the main weapon. You go from the 75mm with improved HE, medium gun with improved HE, to the 76mm, which sport and heavy gun, to the howitzers, basically. Again, then we have the Sherman Firefly, basically. The Sherman Firefly, you have to shell 210 points regular in order to get a super heavy gun, anti-tank gun with coaxial, no hull-mounted machine gun. Starts with easily catches fire. Let's say you pay 215 points and you have light HE. Again, let's compare it to the Comet, which we had before. For the Comet, you had to spend 258 points at regular. Again, this is 40 more points cheaper, so if we compare to the Panther, again, it's way more vulnerable because it's just a medium tank, but now we are starting to save quite a lot of points. Still, for the same price tag, you can get two 17-pounders on a static platform, admittedly, but you get two. So I don't know. I would have to try. Then we have the DD Sherman, the floaty boys with all the stuff floating around. We have the M22 Locust. Again, we are back to light tanks. They can be recce with light anti-tank gun, usual stuff. M24 Shafi, usual stuff, only it's fast. Then we have the tank destroyers, starting small with the 2-pounder Portee and the 6-pounder Portee, which was basically just what's the name? Trucks with a guns literally dropped on top of them. They are soft skin, which mean in 3rd edition they suck. Again, early mid-war, the usual crap. You have the Beacon, which begins being an armor carrier with just a medium anti-tank gun, and that's it. Again, absolutely forgivable. Then we have the Archer, self-propelled 17-pounder. Now, the Archer clocks at 198 points. It has the rear-facing super heavy anti-tank gun and one crew-carried LMG, which cannot be fired together with the main gun, on a medium tank chassis, which wants you to point your rear at the enemy. And again, it's 198 points. At this, for just 15-ish points more, you get the Firefly, which is simply better. Again, the Archer is absolutely useless. Again, I get it, it's a cool model with the gun pointing backwards, but game-wise it's horrible. Then we have a 57mm self-propelled autocar, which is a fancy way to describe an M3 half-track with an anti-tank gun, a field gun mounted. Again, just a medium anti-tank gun, nothing worth mentioning. More variation, 75mm autocar. Then we have the M10 Wolverine, just like the US tank destroyers, open top, just a light tank with a heavy gun, or you can have the M10 Achilles, which is armed with a 17-pounder. Now, this is just a light tank, open-topped with the super heavy. 160 points. Now, it's 40... apologies. It's 40 points cheaper than the Archer, which is medium, but has to give the rare to the opponent, so which means that if you shoot the opponent, he shoots you back at armor value 7, which is more than the 8 of the Achilles. And we still have the 210 points Firefly. Again, the Achilles is very light, open top, so you can pin it easily. I don't know, it doesn't really persuade me, honestly. But to each his own. Then we have the self-propelled artillery category, beginning with a machine gun carrier, which is basically a brain carrier without transport capacity. That's in the artillery, self-propelled artillery slot, and not in the transport section, because it doesn't have a transport capacity. 3-inch mortar carrier, so a brain carrier with a medium mortar. A Bishop, self-propelled 25-pounder, again a medium tank chassis with a forward-facing light howitzer with the 25-pounder AT, which again makes it a basically double duty HE light howitzer or light anti-tank gun. We have the Priest, light tank, open top with a medium howitzer. Then we have the Sexton, which is another light tank, open top with a light howitzer. Again, more variation of the same stuff. We have the anti-aircraft vehicles, Bofors AA, heavy autocannon on a soft skin platform, which sucks. Don't take this. The Polsten AA truck, which has the light autocannon rather than the heavy one, but you can add more mounts. You can have up to 4 mounts, bringing you to be a variable wind but stationary firing platform and still a soft skin. So don't try this at all. Now, soft skins are like the old weapon teams in a sense. What do I mean with this? That in second edition, as you know if you played it, you had these weapon teams that could be one shot by exceptional damage and or snipers. Basically, soft skins have the same feeling. You don't roll to damage them. If you wound them, they're dead, and they are one model. So I'd rather have, for example, a heavy autocannon. Even if it's stationary, at least it doesn't risk dying by a single rifleman. Then we have the variation of Crusader anti-aircraft, which is again, this can be more interesting because they are your autocannon equivalent tanks in British service. They have flak, but you can have either double light autocannon or a heavy autocannon, which are good for destroying infantry. The Staghound with just some HMGs. Light gun, this is more interesting, and the Armadillo, which is again a said armor car with some light machine guns. Moving on to the armor car themselves, again being rather fast. We begin with the usual early war crap, like the Rolls-Royce armor car recce with an NMG. We have early war motorcycle and sidecar, usual stuff. Now, funnily enough, the motorcycles have the questionable firing platform special rule if... Oh, okay, no, I didn't notice this on my first read. So these are only early war. You have this motorcycle and you can give it a light mortar. But you can only shoot it if you give them a fire order. It does have extra selection though. You can take 3 motorcycles for 1 selection in the armored platoon. Again, weird. And then we have again the variation of Lanchester 6x4 armor car with double LMGs, recce. Marmon Harrington armor car marks 1 to 4 with MMGs. The Humber armor car with autocannons. Daimler armor cars. Humber light reconnaissance car, the Humberette, Morris light reconnaissance car. All of these basically are recce. They are open top, sometimes flak, and they are just armor cars. And again, I dare you to easily distinguish one from another. Some of those you can, but they are mostly the same. Morris armor car with an anti-tank rifle mounted, pretty hefty. The Daimler Dingo, which is just a fancy way to describe a silly vehicle. It's one though. The Humber Scout car, again pretty silly. AEC heavy armor car, Mark 1 to 3. This week up armor to a light tank. They can have a light anti-tank gun, so basically a light tank. Only it's an armor car. Beaverette, light armor car. Staghound, Mark 1, heavy armor car. M8 Greyhound, the same as the US. Something more interesting, more British is the long-range dash group armed trucks. This we're gonna spend some time on. They are early mid-war. You can take these as regular or veteran. You get, to begin with, 1 pintle-mounted forward-facing LMG, 1 pintle-mounted LMG with a 360 degrees arc of fire. Problem is, it's a soft skin. You can replace the forward LMG with an MMG or Vickers or an HMG. You can replace the other LMG, same with the MMG or Vickers, and you can possibly have one light autocannon. They are recce, they are cool, they are pretty iconic in my opinion, but again they suffer from the fatal flaw of being soft skin in 3rd edition bolt action, which means they blow up like balloons, like water balloons. Then we have the SAS Jeeps, one version for North Africa. These ones you only get as a veteran. You have a slew of weapons. We have 2 forward-facing LMGs on the same mount, 1 forward-facing LMG, and 1 pintle-mounted LMG, so for a grand total of 4 LMG. They are upgradable in a combination of Vickers K guns or an HMG. So basically, you get a whole lot of DACA. It's recce. again, its main problem is they are soft skin. And they do have the deflate those tires. Special rule, they get basically to advance in areas of difficult ground classed as sandy, rocky, or anything similar. Which, again, they are very, very iconic if you like to play on desert maps. They are not, again, they do have a lot of shots, but being soft skins is a real problem, or can be a real problem. Or you can have the SAS Jeep in Europe, which is basically the same. They can get them only at veteran. The difference is that the SAS Jeep in Europe cannot deflate their tires, but they were smart and put some more armor plating in the front of the vehicle, making it immune to damage, not pinning, from small arms. So the SAS Jeep Europe, I think they can be useful. Lots of DACA for base 90 points, let's say 100, because you want to take at least the frontal armor, but at least you get quite a lot of DACA. Then you have the British Airborne Recce Jeep, which is, again, a poor man's Jeep with just a Vickers gun, with just a machine gun. You can get a second one, but you go back to the problem of being just a soft skin. Then we have the Recce Carrier, which is, again, a brain carrier with no transport capacities that has Recce, basically. For the rest is the same, your same basic brain carrier with no transport capacity, as slightly more weapons. The Wasp flamethrower carrier, same stuff, brain carrier with a infantry flamethrower. And then finally we have the transport and tows section, Jeeps, brain carrier, which clocks at 50 points per regular. You can transport up to 5 more men. You can add an extra pintle mounted LMG if you like to remain with a unit on board, like for example a commander. If you put a commander, an officer, on a brain carrier, now the fact that he loses 1 point of cover doesn't mean anything, because you either destroy the brain carrier or you don't. So it's a great place for your officers. Then we have various kinds of trucks for all pallets. You can have for 2-man transport, 10-man transport, 8-man transport, utility cars, quad tractors, half tracks, White Scout car. These are just the American half tracks, or Recon cars. Again, a Stewart Kangaroo, which is an even smaller carrier. Or if you want a slightly more durable transport, you have the Priest Kangaroo, which is a light tank that open top, which transports up to 11 men. Or you have the Sherman and Ram Kangaroo, which is the same but on a medium tank platform. So if you really like your transport to be survivable. They are still open top, but at least with armor 9 it will take a real effort to destroy them. Then we have more artillery tractors we are not particularly interested in. Landing crafts, again, I'm not going into these. Mules, lovely mules, and more landing crafts and and other stuff. And finally, in all its glory, we have not one but two ambulances, one field ambulance and an armored field ambulance. And honestly, if you take an armored field ambulance, you will have my forever admiration. And as it is tradition, we have some sample armies. Again, in this case, one from Northwest Europe, a British airborne, and some Commandos, of course. And finally, an 8th Army, small 8th Army, 750 points. And to close the book, we have the 4 selection guides, which is basically how they differentiate between early, mid, and late war. So you basically have the list of all the various vehicles and choices that are applicable in either of those 3 historical periods. Now, of course, this still doesn't differentiate on a theater basis, but this I'm like 99% sure is going to come when it's time for Warlords to start releasing supplements once, or campaign books or equivalent, when they finished with main army books. So if you are not a history nerd, you might still, for example, field in an early war selector a tank that was, I don't know, only used in Africa, even though you are fighting in France, just to name an example. Game-wise, it doesn't change anything, but it can lead to historical inaccuracies. So I've been speaking for a lot. I knew this was going to be long. You are going to pardon me. I was just curious to go through this book together with y'all. What can we say? Again, this is what I feel like saying. Like all other books, like Armies of Germany, Armies of the United States, we see a big focus on vehicles and veterans. Again, I don't think it's worth it to repeat it once again. I don't particularly like this design philosophy, but that's just me. People love tanks, and so they give you tanks, of course. So I already started, if you followed some of my battle reports, to start using some of the rules that were leaked, but of course now we can officially upgrade to the full-blown might of the armies of Great Britain. Now, yes, one final thought. Now they split the book in two with armies of the Commonwealth. For example, and I didn't think of mentioning it in the when we were speaking about the infantry teams. For example, you might have noticed that there are no Gurkhas, because technically, of course, they were not based from the British Isles, and so they have been moved to, I guess, the Commonwealth, Armies of the Commonwealth book, which I'm kind of curious to see how much it will differentiate from the Armies of Great Britain. Just wild thought. I don't know if it was warranted a split between the two books, but we will have to see. But that's a matter for another year, so don't rush there. This said, this is the end. Apologies. This is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this sneak peek, and I'll see you in the next video. As usual, be safe, and ciao ciao.